Welcome to the special Public Relations Institute of Australia webinar, where we'll be looking at what it takes to win a Golden Target Award in 2020, and also take a bit of a dive into the new look Golden Target Awards. There's been a lot of effort, energy and enthusiasm put in behind the scenes to make the Golden Targets the awards program they are today. And so we'll be joined by a few people today to discuss various aspects of the awards, but it's great to welcome Jackie Crossman, Chief Judge, to the show. Jackie, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks, Shane.
Are you surviving the lockdown? Well, I suppose we're not locked down yet.
No, but I now am living in a hotspot, so anything could happen.
Anything could happen. Well, we better get you on the record in terms of the Golden Target Awards quickly then. So tell me, you've been the Chief Judge, this is your second year in the role, and this year you've initiated a fairly major overhaul of the Golden Target Awards program. Can you talk me through the highlights of that?
The key part about it is we wanted to really review how the awards are put together to make sure that they are world class and in line with all the other international shows around the world. So we've made a lot of different changes. For example, we've changed the marking criteria. We wanted to simplify that to make it easier for entrants when they're preparing their entries. As part of that, we've also changed how those criteria are actually marked. So in the past, each criteria within an entry was given an equal weighting, essentially a mark out of 7. For example, your objectives have exactly the same mark as what your umbrella strategy was. We didn't think that that actually had the right emphasis on key criteria. So what we've done is we've now made it that you actually get a rating out of the overall percentage. So for example, strategy, measurable outcomes have a greater mark associated with them than what you do when you're outlining what your measurable objectives are. So it reflects the importance of each criteria now. And that actually brings us in line with world-class standards.
So really, this is about aligning the Golden Target Awards with the results that communications can deliver, more so than the process that you go through to deliver those results?
Absolutely. And even when you look at individual, team and agency awards, we've also, again, apportioned each criteria a percentage out of 100 to make sure that it reflects the importance of things like their achievements and the body of work that they're putting forward. And in the case of agency, financial results, etc. So again, it's all about ensuring it's best practice and in line with shows around the world.
And Jackie, I think you've buried the lead, because there's also quite an exciting development in terms of the look and feel of the Golden Target Awards. I can't help but notice there's a new logo, a completely new entry kit, and I think new trophies as well.
Absolutely. So that's the exciting fun part. And we are very, very grateful to Havas Boulevard for coming on board as a partner. And they've done this for us pro bono. So yes, they've developed a new logo.
If that's pro bono, I'd love to see what they do when we pay them.
Yes, exactly. We're very, very lucky, pulling strings. Anyway, so beautiful logo, fantastic, exciting new trophies that everybody will be very proud to show off. And I think that's really important. And certainly, so we've changed it now. So we have bronze, silver and gold winners. And I think that's really super important. There's no more certificates, which often don't make it up onto the wall. Everyone will be so proud whether they have a bronze trophy or gold trophy. And the other thing we've introduced is a beautiful platinum trophy for Best in Show. So that is the campaign that the judges feel stands out from the crowd the most.
Wow, and so that sounds like another fairly significant change as well, moving away from state-based awards with, certificates and a state winner and a national winner, which, let's be honest, a lot of people got confused about whether they'd won the big award, the small award, and it sounds like we're moving just to a national awards program with bronze, silver, gold, and of course, platinum for that very, very special campaign of the year.
Absolutely. And the key objective here has been to really elevate the prestigiousness of the Golden Target Awards and ensure everyone's super proud to actually take home a trophy.
And it certainly will be a stiff competition this year. We're about to be joined by a couple of the judges. It really seems to me that this year the competition is going to be at a higher caliber and level than ever. We've got some really internationally recognised individuals who you've recruited to join the judging panel. Are the Golden Targets going to be tougher this year?
I don't say tougher, but what I will say is that we have recruited a very senior bench of judges. We have some 65 in all, and they reflect both agency heads as well as chief marketing officers, heads of marketing, heads of communications within in-house positions. So that's both within the corporate sector and the government sector. And that's been deliberate. We want to make sure that only the best people are judging each entrant. So this is the industry's opportunity to showcase their best work, their best talent to real kingpins within the industry.
And I think we're just about to invite them on, but Jackie, from a chief judge's perspective, what is the one thing that Golden Target entrants need to do this year to take away that Platinum Award?
Oh, they have to have a real insight-led strategy. They need to have a really captivating, creative idea. And then what I think we're always looking for is what are the outcomes? It's not just about audience reach or whatnot. We want to see really measurable outcomes. And I think if you can tell a story and really make that story compelling, you're right in line to take out that big award.
So really it is about what the outcome of the campaign achieved. Is that the key thing that people really need to be focusing on their award?
Is one key thing. I think without measurable outcomes where you've actually moved the dial in some way, shape or form, moved the needle, I should say, you won't be a winner.
So Jackie, we're lucky enough to be joined by two of our outstanding judges this year that you've recruited from around the world. James Wright, from the global CEO of Havas. Welcome from New York. How is the hotspot?
Well, it's very hot in terms of temperature, but New York's now got things under control as much as can be. Can't say the same for the rest of the country. Quite a few states are still in various stages of problems with what's happening with COVID, with lots of reopening that perhaps has come a little bit too early.
Have you made it back into the office yet, or is the Havas team still working from home?
We were the first agency in North America actually to start working from home from, I think it was March the 15th. We are slowly reopening the office in different parts of the country where it's a little bit safer, but in New York, we're not planning to reopen until probably September now. I have been going into the office though, and Midtown Manhattan is a very, very strange place right now. Right now at this time of the year, you would basically have office workers and tourists, neither of which are there. So I walked past the Empire State Building a couple of days ago and it was completely dead, it was like something out of that film 27 Days Later. It was quite sort of eerie.
Might be time to go and get your picture in front of the Empire State Building with just yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
We're also really lucky to be joined by Darren Burns, who is the Asia Pacific President at Golin Group. Welcome, Darren.
Hi guys, morning. Great to be here.
And you're streaming in from Singapore, which isn't a hotspot, but is also a literal hotspot, I hear. Either bloody hot or hot.
Yeah, it's always hot in Singapore. Yeah, hot or bloody hot. That's why we like it here. One season all year round, so that makes it easy. But yeah, COVID, we've been locked down in Singapore since March, really. And I actually traveled to China in January, so I was in self-imposed isolation once, and I went to the Margaret River in early March, and then I had another 2-week lockdown, and then we've been out of the office for 6 months. It feels like now. It's been a while. So
you're pretty just kind of used to being locked down. This is your new natural habitat.
It is, but actually the great thing about it is, China. Our offices in China have been open for quite a while. Hong Kong was open, but now it's closed down again, and Taiwan has always been open. So those are some of the bright spots and green shoots we see around the region for sure.
And well, I should probably stop chatting about COVID, as interesting as it is. We've all had many conversations about that over the last 6 months, and jump on to what we're really here to talk about, which is the Golden Target Awards. Now, Jackie's done an incredible job of overhauling the program, and we're really lucky to have a whole new set of judges to drive the judging of these campaigns. I mean, Darren, maybe if we start off with you, what are you looking for in Golden Target Awards this year?
I think what we're looking for is a couple of things. I think first of all, there's something that creates impact, whether it's on business, society, or our industry at large. That's one of the key sort of factors in judging the work. And I think increasingly we're looking for work that value that creates awareness versus the old paradigm, which is really around awareness creating value. So that's kind of the core of the earned idea, right? So is this campaign an earned idea at the core? Does it create value that in turn creates awareness or something like that? And, we're always looking for something a bit different or novel. Sometimes as you go through the entries, you see something that really catches your eye, but something that hasn't been done before, hasn't been attempted, even if it's not the best campaign, but it kind of moves our industry forward in new directions. So I think it's kind of those three areas that I'd be looking at.
And that new direction is really important, because I think over the last decade, we've really seen a transition from PR being a brand and awareness tool to PR driving value creation. And that's certainly something that PRA has been trying to drive. Is that something that you're seeing, really consistently globally in terms of PR, not just being a brand tool?
Yeah, I think that's totally crucial. And I think, as we try and get PR more into the CEO and the C-suite, we need to understand more about business, the business of the client and the business we're in, and really make impact that affects those businesses, right? So I think that's a key call out for all PR professionals around the world, to really understand business and build campaigns that actually make an impact on a business.
And how would you expect to see that understanding of business coming through in an award entry?
Yeah, I think in an award entry, I think what we do is we let maybe our junior people write an award entry. And so what's lost in there is probably the thinking that goes around the award. So the premise of what we're trying to do, the kind of background situation, a clear strategy and a clear action plan and a clear outcome. So I think we need to spend a lot more time understanding that. Just like a new business pitch, you wouldn't let your junior copywriter write a new business pitch. Well, I hope we wouldn't do that. We'd all be in the room, we brainstorm. And I think it's similar with entries. We need to have our people in the room, whiteboarding the entry, putting it together, making it look good and getting it in, because judges don't have a lot of time to review the entries. So it's something that's really got to stand out in that entry. It's got to be very clear and concise. And
bringing James in here, you've been judging the Golden Target Awards for a long time now, and maybe Australia's greatest PR export. What are you looking for, and how has that changed over the last decade that you've been judging the awards?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I generally kind of look for sort of three things as well, which is kind of I want to be inspired, I want to see innovation, and I want to see a campaign that's iconic. And so in terms of inspiration, I'm looking for something that actually I'm really jealous about. It's really inspiring to the point that I'm jealous that I didn't come up with that idea, or my agency didn't do that work. It's innovative. It's taking PR and the value of PR into new areas. It's either doing something innovative with a category, a brand, even challenging best practice. I love that kind of concept around innovation. And then, is it iconic? Is it something that we can hold up and say, actually, this is the best campaign in its category this year? And, will it stand the test of time? And really kind of that iconic part, particularly when you start to get in the realms of Grand Prix. I'm very much kind of looking, though, at a more granular level at what was the challenge and what did you do to solve that business problem and that challenge, and what were the results of that, and actually kind of being very demonstrable around the results that you have, and not just to throw out, all the awareness kind of figures, and not particularly to go into all of the data that we often see in jury rooms that talk about how a campaign, particularly social media statistics, almost broke the internet. It's kind of, it can be a bit crazy when you sort of read all of those things, and we're not stupid, but actually be honest about actually what was the effect your campaign had, and obviously kind of linking that back to the actual business problem is absolutely crucial. I saw a great tool of doing it, and Jackie will kind of sort of support this, because I wrote a lot of the entries in my time in Australia, and she and I wrote quite a number of them together, is to list actually what were the 4 or 5 measurable objectives that you wanted to achieve, and get that somewhere in the setup in your objectives, and then actually list them out again in the results, and actually state, you know, specifically how you achieved against each of those, and as in an as measurable way as you can.
Measurement is always a tricky one. I think we went from the stack of press clippings to, as you say, the campaign which broke the internet. And, you know, now we are finally starting to get through to, you know, the dollars and cents of the real impact. So would you rate, you're saying that you would rate an attempt to actually measure the commercial value of a campaign above the reach or the brand awareness elements of a campaign?
Well, it depends what we mean about brand awareness and what it's set out to do. I mean, I think there's a lot of post-rationalisation with award entries in my
certainly post-rationalisation and award entries. It's come up with your smart objectives after.
Yeah, but what did it do for the brand, the cause, the initiative, the program? You know, how much did it move the needle? And actually, awareness might be a factor in that, but generally, it's something else that's much more meaningful. You know, was it sales? Was it, you know, registrations? Was it, you know, that we changed people's attitudes? You know, did we actually change regulation or get corporates to accept a new way of doing business? And those kind of pieces of sort of results that you see are the ones that exist in those iconic campaigns. It changed a behavior, it changed an attitude, it boosted sales, it changed something about how we thought about that brand. And I think those are the ones we're really looking for and excited about when we're in the jury room.
And in the jury room, I think with the Public Relations Institute of Australia has been pushing a lot in terms of creativity and the role of creativity in public relations as being a core skill of public relations. Are you looking for creativity just in those consumer-focused campaigns, or are you looking more broadly across all categories to see a creative spark behind the insight which drove the idea and created that value for the brand?
I'm looking for creativity everywhere, you know, and I think you can be creative with a public affairs campaign, and we've seen some of those as great examples in the PRA down the years, all the way through to, you know, the influence campaign, the consumer campaign, technology campaigns. We're looking for all of that. But ultimately, you know, you've got to follow the scoring of that particular awards program. And if that awards program only gives a certain amount of points for creativity and a certain amount of points exist elsewhere for results, you know, in the words of old Mr. Ogilvy, it ain't creative unless it sells. And, you know, and that can often be the case also in a jury room if those are the criteria for that particular award program.
Now, Jackie, when you need to step in as the chief judge in the jury room and resolve a deadlock, what's going to be the elements which really capture your attention?
As I said earlier, I'm looking for a really good story, a story with an outcome. I'm looking for that amazing, that insightful strategy that's probably research-based, and I'm also looking for the creative gem. And not unlike Darren and James, I want to see that the needle really did get moved.
No, definitely. And well, what we might do then is take a dive inside the jury room and have a look at some of the campaigns which have inspired our judges in the past few years. Maybe, James, do you want to kick off, give an introduction? We'll play that campaign and then have a chat about that entry.
Yeah, sure. So I picked a campaign that I think is very of the moment right now. It's a campaign from 2016. I judged it in Cannes the following year. It was a campaign in the US. It's called Unsafety Check. It tapped into the idea that you could hack the Facebook safety check and actually flip it and actually call it an unsafety check. And it was for the Black Lives Matters movement. And it was to say that Black people don't feel safe in America today. And so it was a campaign that went extremely well. Tens of thousands of people had classified themselves as unsafe and had clicked the unsafety check, with a lot of influencers and a lot of celebrities from all races blackouting this campaign. It came off the back of a few things that had happened in the community that you know, shouldn't have happened. You know, there are Black people being murdered on the streets of America by police officers, and that's particularly one of the points that this campaign was making. And one of the really kind of scary kind of parts of it when you watch the case film is it starts with a young girl in a courtroom talking about how it's unfair that her that mums and dads get killed by police officers, but then it immediately switches to a young black man being held down by 3 police officers around his neck, distressed, saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And it struck me that campaign should be rewatched today. It's 4 years old, and it's entirely symbolic right now of what's happening.
Well, let's throw to that video now so our audience can see that for themselves.
It's a shame that our fathers and mothers are killed and we can't even see them anymore.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
You shot 4 bullets into him, sir. He was just getting his license and registration, sir.
On Martin Luther King Day, the same week of one of the most controversial inaugurations in history, Black Lives Matter needed to reach and empower Black people and their supporters not only on the front lines, but online. Facebook has a tool that allows people to mark themselves safe during life-threatening emergencies. But what if you don't feel safe? We hacked Facebook's safety check, turning the idea on its head, and created a simple and provocative way for Black Americans to let the world know how they feel. Thousands upon thousands of Black Americans marked themselves unsafe, including prominent Black entrepreneurs like Russell Simmons, the co-founder of Def Jam, and celebrities such as hip-hop artist and social activist Talib Kweli, as well as people from all races stood together to support Black people's right to feel safe.
Black Lives Matter is trying to use social media.
Black Lives Matter. 1,562 deaths in police custody.
While we successfully united Black Americans and supporters everywhere, it's clear that now more than ever, there's still much more to do.
That is an incredibly moving case study. I mean, James, I suppose one of the things about that piece of work is it captured a tool that people knew and then allowed them to use it in a different way and express the movement that was going on. But it's also stood the test of time. Is one of the things that you are looking for, you know, that those campaigns that appear timeless at the time?
Yes, I mean, of course, there'll be campaigns that actually have achieved its objective by the definition of the campaign, but those campaigns often then spur and inspire other campaigns to actually kind of think similarly with similar strategies, etc. But something certainly that will test, stand that test of time. I mean, you look back down the years at the Cannes Lions and the PR Lions, and a number of those Grand Prix are campaigns that are part of our everyday vernacular now within the PR circles because they've stood the test of time. You look at Best Job in the World, you look at Meet Graham, you look at the Plough Pledge, you look at the bank campaign for NAB, which was Unbreak the Banks. I think that was the name of it. It might be a different name, sort of similar thing. And of course, Dumb Ways to Die. Those campaigns have stood the test of time, and I think that's really what we all want to be able to sort of achieve in our careers, and that's the kind of work we'd love to do for our clients. You can't do that with every client, of course, but you kind of want a couple of campaigns each year where you can genuinely say you've really, really kind of done something different with for the PR industry and advanced it with the kind of thinking that you brought to that work.
That really is the ability of PR to change and drive conversations in a long-term way and create that sustainable impact. I mean, Darren, you've also brought along a case study. Do you want to give us a short introduction before we throw to that video?
Yeah, sure. I love this case. It's called the tampon tax, and it won the Grand Prix at Cannes last year. What it does is, I think it's a great campaign. So what it does is calls out an injustice. So in Germany, tampons were being taxed at 19%. And caviar and paintings and those kind of things were being taxed at only 7%. So this brand called The Female Company, an online seller, called out the injustice, right? And I think to get around the law, they created this book of tampons because books are taxed at a lower percentage. So they launched this book, very clever campaign, created a book just full of tampons to sell to people, taps into the whole activist kind of element, corporate activism, stamping out injustice, right? And it led to a change of law as well, right? So I think, again, a very novel idea, calls out an injustice, creates real impact and lasting impact. And I think one of the things that we're talking about a lot recently is this idea of what a challenger brand means. And it's not about challenging competitors, it's about challenging an issue in society. So I think those brands that have credence, that call out a challenge in society, they challenge that issue, they make an impact, and it does well for their brand. But it's going to be rooted in the actual DNA of the brand. And I think that the company has a history of this, so it's a really great campaign.
Well, let's throw to that video now as well.
I was shocked to learn that pads, tampons, and other menstrual products are taxed as luxury goods.
I suspect it's because men were making the law.
Right, Mr. President, men made the tax laws. 50 years ago, German lawmakers, who were all men, decided to tax feminine hygiene essentials like tampons with the highest rate of 19%, but things like caviar, oil paintings or truffles with only 7%. So tampons are the real luxury? Menstruation is luxury? Breaking the law wasn't an option for the Female Company, an online shop for feminine hygiene products. So how could we sell tampons for 7% instead of 19%? We outsmarted the law with the law itself by selling tampons packaged as a book, because books are also only taxed with 7%. Hello to the tampon book. A book that is a packaging for tampons to save taxes. A book that is a provocative message of existing gender inequality in our tax system. Filled with 15 tampons and 40 pages of explicit content about your period. Your period that is still treated as something to be embarrassed of. The book sold out within a day. The second edition within a week. It put the unfair tax system on the agenda of influencers and media.
1.650 € Steuern zahlt jede Frau in ihrem Leben nur für Tampons.
Germany's largest TV networks started to put pressure on the German Ministry of Finance. The message became a political message, too political for Facebook, which temporarily banned the content. Leading female politicians and members of the German parliament started sharing the tampon book. The petition on change.org got more than 150,000 signatures. And now, the German Committee on Legal Affairs must officially debate the tampon tax.
Again, it's an incredibly moving case study which actually drove quite a monumental change. I mean, similar to the work with Black Lives Matter, it has actually, you say to anyone today the unsafety check, you also say to anyone today the tampon book, and you've crystallized the issue of GST and tax on women's sanitary products in one issue. Is that what really stood out for this campaign with you as well?
Yeah, I think for the reasons I already mentioned, but I think it's also, and we've talked about this a little bit earlier, is that you've got to have something that stands out to the judges, and as soon as you see the headline, you want to read it, right? The case, what is this about, right? And again, they articulate the case very clearly. It's a well put together case study and has real impact. I mean, this changed the law. So I think, yeah, it kind of encapsulates those things we've been talking about already.
Darren, I love what you just said there about, starting with the headline, because I think that's one of the great things that we can provide as a bit of advice to people in a written entry as well, is start with why it's great. Start with the headline, because you're writing almost a newspaper article, not a novel. And if it takes ages for me to understand why this is so great, then you've kind of lost me. You've got 1,000 words or however many it is these days with the PRA. It's a short number of words. Start with that headline. I love that.
Yeah. And I think it's going to get you in the lead, doesn't it, really? Like when you're reading a story, if you don't get me in the paragraph or the headline, I'm not going to read it with much detail. I'm not going to try and find the kind of good idea in there. It's got to really snap and stand out. So back to my point earlier about please get somebody who's a good writer on the case as well.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's a good writer can really make an award entry sing. And I think, James, you might have expanded your homework a little bit and brought 2 case studies. Do you want to give us a short snapshot of the second case study that you want to talk about?
Oh, I'm based in America now, and another big issue that's kind of at the forefront is the upcoming federal election. And again, back in sort of 2016, there was a campaign that was created by Boost Mobile, and it was all about kind of how voting is a right and not a privilege. They opened up their Boost Mobile stores as voting stations. They're primarily found in the poor areas of cities and towns. They sort of have primarily kind of minorities who utilize their services. And there's a lot of research in the States about how hard it is for people to vote, and how in particular it's very difficult, and more difficult, twice as difficult in fact, for Americans from minorities to vote. Basically the lines are in general double the sort of length, and often because voting stations are further away from those particular areas of town where you actually need to go and vote, then they don't vote either. And so you've had this kind of statistics now for many, many years where they just don't bother turning up. And so, they're less likely to travel because it's, and also the fact that there's longer lines. More than half of those people who made under $20,000 voted in the previous election before that one in 2016. So it was a huge issue for them. And I love the fact that they really kind of embraced who they are. They knew who their target audience is, and they were championing them. They weren't making any kind of political statement around who to vote for. It's that voting is a right, not a privilege. Come and use our shops. And so they registered them and went through some considerable challenges to register their mobile stores as voting stations, and got a huge amount of media coverage for it, huge amount of great sort of positive social sentiment. And you know what? They're looking to do it again this year.
Well, let's throw to that video.
There are already reports of problems at polling stations.
I ended up waiting in line for almost 7 hours to vote.
I spent 9 hours in a gym packed full of hundreds and hundreds of people.
They said I was the lucky one because I was the last one to vote. And have all these people here waiting. That's unfair.
Oh, fue terrible. Tuve que esperar por más de 5 horas, tal vez 6, sin agua, sin comer.
Unequal voting access is definitely a problem in our country.
Boost Mobile stores are located in the communities where these problems are happening. So we are offering our network of stores as polling places for Election Day.
The more accessible places that are there for the minority communities, the bigger the turnout could be on an election day.
We're already implementing this program in a few innovative counties. Now we need your help to spread nationwide. If you believe we should all have an equal voice on November 8th, sign this petition and help spread the word. Together, we can spark real change. And if you are a Board of Elections official in need of additional polling places, please contact us immediately.
I would really question anybody that's not getting involved in this because it just makes sense.
Voting has to be a fundamental right, no matter who the people are.
Let's make this the year every American is heard equally.
And that's certainly, I think, like, in terms of creativity, that's the upper edge of creativity. That's a brand looking at their physical stores and going, we are going to be incredibly creative and turn these into voting stations. Is courage in your campaign also something that you're looking for, James?
Yeah, I love to see the personality of the brand shine through, for them to be very comfortable in their own clothes and to have courage. And that also means that, very from the client and the agency, we need to be really aligned and really trust each other on something like that. And to the point that we've been discussing with some of these other campaigns is, you kind of got to have a hero and a villain. You kind of got to have one side and another side, and really be clear about what that challenge and that solution is. I mean, it's also shining a light on facts that people don't know. That that they are disproportionately affected, Black people in America, around voting. They have far longer waits. There are fewer voting machines and fewer poll workers in their polling places, and it's just more difficult to find a polling place. And they close the doors at certain times, and so people, if you've been queuing for 3 hours to vote and they close it at 7 o'clock, they don't leave it back. They don't leave it open for an extra 3 hours. You've lost your your democratic right to vote. And I think that that was something that was really, really well championed, and it was done. I think it's gonna be a much bigger sort of piece this year for them.
Fantastic. And I'm conscious we're just about to run out of time, so I might, Darren, we promised, you've already given a great piece of advice in terms of thinking about that headline, but is there another piece of advice that you'd like to close off for people when they are writing that campaign entry for this year's Golden Target Awards?
Yeah, I think it's kind of simple, I think, right? So a great headline, right? A great lead into the entry, right? As James said, clear understanding of what the problem is, a clear understanding of how I solved it, not a list of tactics, but how we solved it, and what was the lasting outcome. And I kind of mentioned it earlier too, is to get the team in a room, get the whiteboard out, put it up there, and show the entry to somebody else outside. Do they think it sings and pops and it's amazing, or do they think it's very, very ho-hum? So again, I think that's kind of the advice that I would give.
Yeah, no, those are some great pieces of advice, especially getting the team in the room, actually whiteboarding it out rather than just kind of identifying your 5 case studies and then assigning a junior to start writing those out and collaborating with the agency to find out the details of that campaign.
Because you might have a great case, right? But the way it's put together, you just can't award it because you can't really tell what it's really achieving. So it's a great case, and then someone with a great writer or a great planning around it, it really helps it pop and sing, which is what you need.
No, that's a great closing piece of advice. James, what's your final thought for people entering this year?
Well, in a similar vein, I would say that, it's not necessarily what you put in, it's sometimes what you take out, because a lot of people try to put too much information into an award entry. And so I always encourage, even with my own, I would get anybody to read it. I want someone else to read it. Don't interrupt them. Then let them talk about it afterwards. If you find yourself having to explain points to them, then you need to go and rework it, because you aren't going to be in the jury room to be able to do that. And that's really, really important. So I think, in addition to have a great copywriter, but have a great editor, someone who can edit that. And, that's something that I think that often goes amiss. And just don't try to pack it with everything and anything. Keep it simple so that people can really understand it. And I think, you go a long way to putting your entry at the front of the pack.
There we go. Keep it simple, stupid. That is always an enduring piece of advice. Well, look, James, thank you so much for dialing in from New York, and Darren for joining us from Singapore. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on and share your expertise with our entrants this year.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. And good luck.
Well, there we go. Good luck to all of our entrants in Australia from Darren and from James. Jackie, we might close off with just a few of the fundamentals of this year in terms of some of the key changes that people should watch out for. Can you tell me about a little bit about the new campaign categories?
Yes, we've added some new campaign categories in because it's absolutely vital that the awards reflect the market and key trends, and we're right at the forefront of what's happening out there. So we've added a few new ones, and they are we've got an Best Influencer campaign, I think for obvious reasons. Best PR-led brand partnership, and that's where we all know that partnerships are really vital often in really making a difference to brands. They can enjoy a greater audience reach, and they can also enjoy the halo effect of that one brand can bring to another one. So we think there's rich territory there for an award, so we've created a special award around that. We've also looked at the whole research data-driven area, because we know that we're increasingly living in a data-driven world, and research is core to ensuring that we have those great little nuggets that can drive inspiring strategies and really creative ideas. So there's a whole award around there. And we also have one around regional communications. Quite often the winning campaigns can be a national campaign, but I think there's a lot of great work going on in Australia that might just be targeting a particular town or a particular region or a rural community, or even one particular city. So we really want to make sure that we can put the spotlight on that excellent work as well. And then finally, we've added in media relations, and we've done that deliberately. Some would say, well, that's a bit old school, isn't it? And we say, no, we are reflecting the fact that phenomenal media relations is still a really core skill of any PR practitioner. So we think that it merits its own award.
Oh no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, here at Public Address, we are focused on the future of media relations, and as much as I think it's to misquote Mark Twain, I think it is the death of media relations is greatly over exaggerated, and it's certainly great to see that we are recognising how important media relations is to the PR profession in this year's Golden Target Awards. I might also, let's just hone in on a couple of the individual awards here. What's the difference between Professional of the Year and Leader of the Year, and how do you separate out those two categories?
Okay, so Professional of the Year and Leader of the Year can come from an in-house position or an agency role. Really, the difference between those two levels is your time in the industry, your seniority, and your actual impact on the industry. So a leader is clearly an industry leader. So that might be an agency head, it might be a head of comms type role. But a professional is someone who has a number of years experience and has made a big impact, but they're still on the way to ultimate leadership.
And so traditionally we've seen a lot of campaigns entering into different categories. How many categories can you enter, and how much does it cost per entry?
Okay, so we've made it that you can enter one campaign and up to 3 campaign categories, and we've done that deliberately. We didn't want just one campaign dominating the awards show. That can happen from time to time. So we feel that pick your 3 best campaign categories if you want to enter multiple, no more than 3, but the ones that you think your campaign really stands out in, and go for gold within those 3 categories. The entry fee really depends on whether you're a member or not a member and when you enter. If you miss the standard entry deadline, then obviously the cost of entry goes up. So what I would recommend to everybody is go online, download the entry kit, print it out. It always helps to actually have a hard copy and really go through those categories, pick the right categories for you based on the descriptions. Before you prep your entry, really go through the entry criteria, look at the percentage points that we have allocated to each criteria, and really make sure you are putting in the right effort into each of those based on the level of percentage points. And just be really super sure, like I always read the entry kit from cover to cover and go through afterwards when I'm preparing an entry and tick all the boxes, make sure I've ticked that, yes, I've done that, yes, I've done that. So I think that's my best advice to anybody, and that will also tell you how much each entry will cost.
Okay, we've talked a lot about how those big bang global campaigns really stand out, but isn't it also some of the smaller campaigns which are entered by professionals, individuals, small organizations, councils even, that really stand out in terms of the actual impact that they drive in the community and the value that they create?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a great big nationwide or global Black Lives Matter type campaign. It can be as simple. I remember one from a few years ago of getting people to get on their bikes in a council area to ride bicycles. It can be anything really. So don't be put off and think you have to have a huge idea that just went global or all around Australia. There are a lot of different types of campaigns that can win. Just make sure you tell a compelling story that's easy for the judges to understand, and that you do have some clear outcomes.
To close off, I know one of the highlights of the year for much of the community is the Golden Target Awards dinner and receiving trophies. And in these, very uncertain times, the PRAA we've moved entirely to virtual events. We'll have a virtual conference later this year. I mean, is there any hope that we might have a great big dinner to go to, or how will you actually be handing out the awards this year, Jackie?
Well, obviously, that needs to have a virtual element to it. Whether we can, by the time it rolls around in October, whether we can actually have any physical, formal physical gatherings as well, we're not sure at this point, but we have got backup plans in place for that. But we're really focused hard on ensuring that we've got an exciting virtual event, and we encourage all entrants, and certainly we'll be announcing finalists, all finalists to, get dressed up, stage their own internal gatherings, celebrate, put on some food and some drinks, whatever, pretend you're really there, because you can still have an awesome time. And we'll be looking to highlight the colour of all those individual celebrations as well as part of our virtual awards night.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to see what happens, and touch wood, fingers crossed, the health advice means that we can hold some physical gatherings, but I think we will be entirely in the government's hands and what happens with this unknown pandemic. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us, and on behalf of the whole PRIA, thank you so much for all of the energy, enthusiasm and dedication you put into the Golden Target Awards. They're looking bigger, better and bolder than ever, and I can't wait to see what everyone enters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute privilege to be able to rejuvenate the awards and really ensure that they are world class. And I really can't wait to see the entries.